So everyone knows me here. I'm here to introduce Bharath from the University of Montana. Bharath has worked with Professor Luis Moreno for many years, and we have started working together in recent years. Bharath is the associate editor of, there's two journals here. Well, I forget your long list of, but ZDM, which is now the International Journal of Math Ed, and the Montana Mathematics Enthusiast, which he edits and has founded, and it's a wonderful, wonderful journal. Wrong door.
This way.
No, that way.
That door doesn't open.
Where do you go in? So I'll know.
Yeah, that door's not a door.
Okay.
It doesn't open.
That's
All right, welcome. Bharath has interests in lots and lots of different things, so it's my pleasure to introduce him today and to talk about some really important issues. We've had a very rich first year of our interdisciplinary colloquium series, and interdisciplinarity is an important aspect of our work here, even though the focus is on mathematics education. To have lots of different perspectives from different areas is important to help us understand the more fundamental issues and ideas at the center. So social justice is a big theme. There's also a book, I'll go and get it, that has just been edited and published as a monograph on social justice that I edited. So it's my great pleasure to introduce Bharath. He's a member of our Centre Advisory Board as well, and you have one member here on our executive board who you now met, Robin Cave, so we have some nice connections here. So without further ado, I'm going to shut up and hand it over to Bharath, and he's going to talk on talent development and social justice.
Well, thank you, Stephen. Well, I'll wait for Stephen. Well, it is a real pleasure to be here, and well, Louis is not here, but I'd like to thank both Louis and Stephen for inviting me. I'm going to get started here. Now, I'll give you a little bit of a background on this talk, because I mean, I got into gifted and talented because I was I was working on my PhD in mathematics at Northern Illinois, and I got married and I had a kid, and I had a TA salary which was not enough, to make a living. So I got certified to go and teach in a high school in Ottawa, a small town which is south of DeKalb. So, and over there, I mean, I was given the job of being the gifted coordinator for the school district. So I just had to learn on the job, essentially what all this means. So half the stuff that I'll tell you is practical, and the other half is things that I have read and I have written on. And so you can see that the title of the talk is, there it says, well, talent development and social justice, amicable agendas are conflicting constructs. So there is supposed to be a kind of a tension between the two, and we are going to talk about that as well. So my plan is to, talk for about, say, 50 minutes, and then maybe we can have a discussion, because I just don't want this to be a monologue. It can be any kind of a discussion. Okay, well, and thank you all for coming. I was hoping that there would be nobody, and then Steve and I could go and have a beer. But okay, well, you've already had a look at the abstract, so I'm not going to bore you with that. So I'm just going to start with an overview of the issues. So the first point is, well, in the U.S., when each time we mention the word gifted or gifted education, there are some images or some preconceptions that are formed in people's minds. And the first thing is it has to do with elitism and socioeconomic class. And there's been a lot of criticism that in the United States, well, gifted and talented education essentially caters to the needs of students that are socioeconomically privileged. Then there is a reductionist in that type of argument, which is a nature versus, which would be nature versus nurture, and it says nature versus nature there, but anyway.
That's a compliment.
So the thing is, so if you are going to label a student as being gifted, talented, academically promising, highly able, well, there are a number of labels that are used. I mean, is it because that they have received, all the benefits of a background or an upbringing where intellectually stimulating activities were encouraged, or are they just gifted without having come from an environment which is intellectually rich and stimulating? So, and then there's this whole issue of identification, because in most of the school districts, a child is given this label of being gifted based on some measures that are used. So are these measures? Are they without any bias? So we need to have a look at that as well. So there are three big issues, so to speak. So now, if you look at societal views, well, there are a lot of negative views of giftedness in the United States, and I showed you some of the views. They feel that these children are already coming from privileged families, they have access to more resources, and on top of that, they are being given additional support. But now, if you look at funding in public schools, well, there are a lot of resources that are provided for remedial types of education. Students that have some deficits in reading and arithmetic and so on, there is a lot of funding that goes towards that. And in fact, there was a survey article that came in 2002, and I don't know if these figures are still true, but on an average, well, $30 billion is spent on special education programs, and in gifted education you get less than 1% of this amount. So I guess for me, I see it as, well, it's a question of social justice. Because, if on the one hand you say that, well, if you have a student who is gifted, and if we are going to cater to them, we aren't really doing them any kind, we are giving them the same types, of opportunities that we are giving the other end of the spectrum. So, essentially what I'm saying is, if we view catering or, nurturing talent of students that are academically promising as being elitist, then are we not being unjust towards, the abilities of those students? But then, on the other hand, so, it's a kind of a catch-22 type of deal, and each time you have a look at the arguments that are out there, they all, come down to this whole question of nature versus nurture, being privileged versus not being privileged. And so maybe there is a different way. I'm looking at this whole question. So now, if you look at the literature in gifted education, there are a number. I serve on the editorial boards of Gifted Child Quarterly and the Journal of Secondary Gifted Education and so on. And there are a number of articles that we get from China and from Korea and from Singapore. And there are, these Eastern models. And each time we read an article from the US, they're saying, well, maybe we should have a look at how they do it in the East. And so now, you have to bear in mind that you just can't take a model that works somewhere else and just put it and just say, well, it's going to work over here. Well, if you look at Singapore, Singapore is 26 miles long. I think the US is much longer than that, and it's not as homogeneous, although in Singapore there are there is a mix of 4 different distinct types of cultures. But the point is, any type of educational system is going to be influenced by the social and cultural ideologies that characterize that particular society. And so if you look at the literature, they would say that, well, Western systems of education are seen as fostering creativity, entrepreneurship, and if you look at Eastern systems, well, there's more emphasis on compliance, on memorization, on repetitive work. Now, this is what the literature says. Okay, but now if you look at, you know, Eastern and South Asian countries, well, there is a lot of stress on the values of effort, hard work,